Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me today is Mr. Matt Germain. Hey, Matt, how you doing, buddy?
Excellent, man, always. You?
I am doing wonderful, my friend. Jeez, Manise. I'm so glad to see spring training open up down here in Florida with the Grapefruit League. If I was in Arizona, I would definitely be out there with the Cactus League. But my mind really hasn't been on spring training. It's been on this World Baseball Classic, dude.
Yeah, it's great to see it back in full force. The crowds have been really fun to watch. The atmosphere is great. The players seem to be really embracing it. And there's a lot of strength, even in the younger teams and the teams that have, I would say, a lack of depth. They're showing a lot of heart and hustle, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I mean, it has that postseason vibe. We're in the playoffs. That's what it feels like when you're watching these. And just the quickest, shortest introduction, folks who haven't a clue what I'm talking about with the World Baseball Classic. This is where several teams go ahead and get together to face off, almost kind of Olympic type situation as far as to win the World Baseball Classic. And what happens is players who, whether they come from a certain country, if they're playing the MLB or not, they may be playing for their home country. And they don't necessarily even have to be a native from there, but it could be somebody who maybe has a grandparent or somebody else's affiliation. And we can talk about some of those people in a few moments. But basically what it comes down to is 20 teams that are broken up basically into 4 pools, 5 each one, and they compete with one another. Each team battles the other 4 teams, and then they advance. So we'll get a little bit into that, but I want to give a brief introduction into what that is.
And I think one of the keys to point out too, just before you continue, is that teams also earn some money to support baseball in their home countries as well, which is pretty significant.
Yeah, because let's face it, there's a lot of these countries, they don't have much support. So I'm really glad to hear that. I didn't realize that, Matt. So thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
But I love it because think about it. This is only been going on since about 2006, and about every 4 or 5 years it pops up again. And the last one was 2017. But because of COVID and everything else, we're just now getting around to this version or this edition, if you will, of the baseball biz. Baseball biz. Geez, where'd that come from? World Baseball Classic. Oh Lord, man!
It's actually every 3 years that they do it now, and I think that's a good tempo when you consider the lifespan of a career in the majors, right? So most players will get 3 or 4 chances to really be in their prime during the Classic, and also get the edges, right? So if you're a weaker country, you might be able to play up to 5 or 6 times for that country. I was looking at Great Britain and Harry Ford, and he'll be able to suit up for them, oh, good God, at least another half dozen times before his career is over, assuming he stays healthy. But it's great to see that kind of leadership they'll have for years.
It's good to see them have the opportunity like that. There's no doubt. Think about it. When you have the All-Star game in the middle of the season each year, you get to see players matching up with their opponents, either on the National League side or the American League side. And they get an opportunity to chat with one another for a little bit. But what this does in the World Baseball Classic, they have the opportunity for a few weeks to meet with other players that they've never really played with before. They learn a lot. They build up a different kind of camaraderie. And I think it builds up a unique energy with these teams as well.
It builds up the sport in general, I think, and it gives it an international flavor that it so badly needs. They need to have that interaction between all these countries that love the game or that want to learn more about the game, and give them an opportunity to embrace it. Being from Canada, soccer has never been a strength of ours. And this year, or last year, we finally got into the World Cup. And that was a huge deal. And even though all these Canadians probably didn't know much about the sport, haven't followed it passionately, all of a sudden became passionate about it. And I compare that the exact same way with baseball and the World Baseball Classic. Is it gives the opportunity for Great Britain, Czechoslovakia, or Czech Republic, a whole bunch of different nations to come up and have some success and show some pride in a sport that they may not really know that well. And the crowds, man, the crowds are so much fun to watch in some of those places. It's a lot of fun.
You think about that. Like I say, the size of some of these crowds, the energy that they have out there, it's just numbing. We're looking at real quickly some of the teams. They've been broken out into 4 pools. The first pool is Cuba, Italy, Netherlands, Panama. The second pool B is Japan, Australia, Korea, Czech Republic, China, The C pool is Canada, Colombia, Mexico, USA, Great Britain, and Pool D is Venezuela, Israel, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Nicaragua. Now, I just throw all that out there, but when all this first came forward, I thought, I know there's going to be a few teams I'm really going to look at closely. It's easy to say, okay, USA, yeah, okay. Nothing, I love them, but the team I was going to look at the most, I said, I think that the Dominican Republic and Venezuela are going to be two really good teams to see playing out there in Pool D in Miami.
Yeah, the fact they ended up in the same division or whatever pool is incredible because they played that game against one another so tough, and it's a little bit more of a rivalry because of the proximity of being Latin American. You have had a really fun game, and I think everybody underrated Venezuela initially, and kind of now like they're all switched on and playing. I don't want to say they're playing at their best because it's spring training still for most of these guys, but they seem to be a little bit ahead of where Dominican Republic are, and that's what I've seen with a lot of teams so far. It seems to be like the teams that have a lot of players in the winter leagues, including Australia, are doing much better than the teams that don't have many players that did some winter ball.
Yeah, Altuve. You got Acuna Jr., Salvador Perez. Jeez, man, he's watching that big man come up to the plate. It's been amazing. Santander. Let's see who else. Cabrera's on there. And my favorite, David Peralta.
They were describing like the bottom of their lineup and how two of the three in the bottom of the lineup had hit 30 home runs in the last 2 or 3 years. So
a couple of those guys are fairly seasoned. Peralta and Salvador. Perez. Both those guys have been in the game for a bit, mid to late 30s, and but man, did they put on a show?
Yeah, I don't know if you caught LaSorsa and the passionate jam that he got Italy out of, and he was pumped. I don't know if it was the most hyped moment ever in WBC, but he was just amped and vibrating off the mound after he was done. And then that tweet went viral afterwards because it was so fun to watch. And I was pretty happy to see that because I think they can talk passionate beforehand. They can say the right things, but to show the passion on the field is another thing altogether.
Yeah, he was just walking off the field. Wasn't that like the game was over at that point? It was just he had achieved what he wanted to achieve on the mound at that point.
Yeah, bases loaded. He had to get out of the jam and got it done. Another example would be Randy Arozarena.
Oh, yeah.
And he was going to fist pump Will Smith at the plate. Will Smith shut him down. And Randy said, okay, I got you. And then he went off and became one of the highlights of that game and beating the U.S. So there's a lot of little idiosyncrasies in these games, and you're seeing a lot of camaraderie going on that you don't normally see in a regular baseball game.
One of the things that's interesting too is, like I was mentioning earlier, where the players are from doesn't also necessarily mean if you're playing in the MLB, you may be playing for another team. Obviously, someone like Shohei Ohtani's playing with Japan. And then you have someone like Freddie Freeman playing for Canada. And he was doing this because his mother was from there and he felt like he wanted to honor her as
both
well as
parents, actually.
Both of them are. Okay, great. I didn't realize that. I think that's great that he's doing that. And Canada, Canada woke up a lot of folks because what had been since 2006, the team scored as many runs as they didn't.
Yeah. The lineup is potent for Canada. Nobody should underrate their lineup because I think a lot of their young guys may not have the pedigree of being at the upper echelon of the minors, but they all have significant talent and high ceilings. So they can come up big in big moments and get some really good at-bats going. Weakness is always going to be the pitching and some defense in certain areas. Like Canada's never had the strongest shortstops, for example, or strongest center fielders, although this year their outfield's a lot better than it normally is.
Now, Canada's playing the U.S. tonight, and Canada has a 1-0 victory, and the U.S. has played 2 games already, and they're 1-1.
Run differential, though, they're way down. Like, U.S. is in trouble because they only scored 6 runs against Great Britain. Now, I know Colombia probably put themselves in the hole, too, with their performance against. But if it were to come to a tie, let's say Mexico is able to pull it off because they've had the most success so far. And then Canada is somehow able to get 2 wins total, maybe 3. And then US is able to do the same. Then the run differential comes into play with this tournament. And it's huge. So the fact that that Canada had 18 runs against Great Britain plays big time in this.
I'm curious about tonight's matchup, though, because here it is Monday, March 13th. And tonight at 10 o'clock, Lance Lynn's going to be taking the field for the USA. And was it Mitch Bratt taking it for Canada?
Yeah, I honestly don't know anything about him.
I don't know anybody knows anything about him. I looked a little bit for this dude. Said, where is he? And
yeah,
I think he was somewhere in the Rangers organization.
and sometimes that works to his advantage, though. We've seen that, right? Where first look at someone, it can be tricky.
I'm interested to see what the young man brings to the table. And you were talking about somebody who could be for a career for a while. He's only 19 years old, so he could be in the World Baseball Classic a few times. That's for certain.
It's too bad some of the pitchers didn't show up for Canada. Like Mike Sororka has been dealing with injuries forever. James Paxton, the same thing. Those are two big arms that they could have really used. And Jameson Taillon is the one that I thought he should be there in all honesty, unless there's something physically wrong with him. And you can't ask everybody to jeopardize their careers and their season just to play in this tournament. I get it, but it would be fun at some point to see some Canada with some of their better pitchers, because they do have a lot more potential overall that way. I think if there's one thing that a lot of these countries that are in the margins, like the smaller nations and the ones that don't have as much talent, pitching is where you see the big difference. Even Puerto Rico, which has a really good lineup, they're lacking pitching so much in terms of depth, and you see it come up later in the games, and some here, some there. But when I saw John Axford come out for Canada at 40 years old, cover first base, like quick as lightning, I was like, where did this come from? Wow. It's awesome. Yeah, and then Matt Brash came in, and he's going to be a really good arm for Canada for a long time. So they have some youth and some good arms coming through. Just a matter of finding at least a good 8 arms that you can ride for this tournament and get you through the tournament.
It's going to be interesting, too, because we were talking about the 18 runs that Canada put up there on the board the other day. But good gravy, man. Can you imagine being China today?
22-2.
22-2.
Yeah, they've had a really rough time. I don't understand it either, because a lot of these countries have really good cricket backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so you would think that they'd be able to translate a lot of those skills over. You would think India would be in this tournament, New Zealand, a lot of other countries. I know New Zealand's now part of the Australian Baseball League, so they have a team now in Auckland. So maybe that generates some talents to come out of New Zealand. But there's a lot of countries out there you would think. China is one. They have a lot of people. And so I don't understand why they're not able. Obviously, it comes to playing it.
Maybe I would thought national pride that the government would scour the country to find some folks to put together a team for something like this. It's just, I was surprised with China. By the way, I love China's hat. I love the logo, the little golden dragon, flaming dragon on a red field. So I love that. I think, but that's the best thing China's got going for them is the design of their hat.
Did you see in Gibo close it out for Great Britain? The T fell off of his jersey, just fell off. It was a sticker. Yeah. So it just said Great Britain.
Oh, brother. Oh,
yeah. Hopefully they get jerseys the next time around. Decent ones.
Oh, jeez, man. That sounds like a Charlie Brown type operation, doing something like that.
It shows you the shoestring budget that these guys are operating with, though. That's the sad truth. Is that a lot of these teams are just there, like they're lucky to be there, quite honestly. So that's why it's so huge that they win and get some funding for themselves to help them out.
I'm always intrigued, like I was saying earlier, about different players where they're appearing. And obviously, like Shohei Ohtani, Japan. One that kind of blew my mind was a guy he brought along with him, and that's Lars Nootbaar.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute. I said, this sounds like a Dutch candy bar or something, but no, this gentleman, I know his heritage, his mother, she lived in Japan, or her parents. And I was really glad to see that he was able to go there with them. And there's others out there too, you see that they're going across this. So I'm glad to see as many MLB players out there. I always hope they're not usurping a spot from somebody from that country. But great players, if they can play for those teams, fantastic.
Yep, the leadership for this one came right from Mike Trout, and then all the way down behind him. So I know there's a lot of people that pulled out, and it probably would be a better tournament if they could do it mid-season when everybody is in mid-form. But I think NHL is the only one that shuts down the league to do that kind of thing completely.
Wow.
So maybe in the future, if MLB decides for whatever reason to shorten the season, maybe they decide they can do that. But I don't see it in the near future by any means. I do know one thing that probably is motivating the Stars to participate in these things so heavily, not only is national pride, but if you follow the World Cup for soccer, they make a lot of money from appearing in that tournament. And so there is some monetary benefit to being in these big things, sponsorships, this, that, the other thing. So I think eventually they're seeing, maybe not this time around, but next time and next time, they're able to amp it up each time and add some coin to their pocket.
The World Cup wasn't that long ago. So I think that sort of excitement about the whole international feel has probably elevated the popularity of the World Baseball Classic. So we'll see how this plays out. Now, like you were pointing out, I think if dollars are there, the rest of the strategy will follow behind it. And MLB would find a way to make this work. That would be interesting to see if they could do a break in the season. The All-Star game is nice, but I would love to see something like this in the middle of the regular season as well. And
yeah, I'm actually a proponent of the All-Star game being what starts the season. It'd be for the previous season's stars, kick off the season with an All-Star game, right? At the end of spring training. And then you do the Hall of Fame induction at the same time. So everybody's there, all the stars are there, they're all together. You do the Hall of Fame induction, and then you go on.
I like that. That's a great way to launch the season, when you think about it. For one thing, the inductees of the Hall of Fame, I like that to start off the season instead of just put it in the middle of the season. Right now, those folks are waiting until, like I said, mid-season before they're going to be getting the award. It's nice. I know they build it up and over time. And we got Fred McGriff from here in Tampa. He's going to be in there. But I just thought from the time they announced him on the veterans until the actual handing over to him, I thought it's going to be probably 6, 8, 10 months almost by the time, at least from him, the Veterans Committee. But I like your idea of actually putting that up at the beginning of the season.
It'd be based on a full season. You always see at the All-Star game, some guys have a hot first half, and I think it should reflect the entire season. The other benefit that you have then is that everybody's semi-healthy and able to go. They get to set their sights on the season, and if you plan it out correctly, you can actually run the season from then on a 6-day basis, kind of what they do in the minors in most levels now, where you play Tuesday to Sunday with 6 starters and you don't have an all-star break, and you just run it all the way through the season. And you could even make each week one series against one team and less travel. But that's going way down the rabbit hole. But I just think that they're like, every year we get to some point in the season when the Hall of Fame voting begins, and then nobody's talking about real baseball anymore. They're talking about the past. And all the conversations and all the hype tends to be about the Hall of Fame during the season when there's actually stuff going on. And so you always start losing sight a little bit about what teams are doing what, how well are they doing, what's this, what's that, and nobody's talking about it because they're talking about the Hall of Fame. That should happen in the off season. That's when you have the time to reflect and to think and to look through everything and digest the arguments for and against all these players. That's when you do the voting, in my eyes, not in the middle of the freaking season. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm with you, brother. I really am. I had so much issues too once upon a time with the All-Star game. And even when I first heard about the World Baseball Classic years ago, I thought, this is just a great opportunity for your star players to get hurt and not be able to play for your team. And there's some of that. Some guys actually didn't even make it to the World Baseball Classic. Let's see, Vlad Jr., I believe. And there was, I'm sure, several others, but he's the one that comes to mind first. But Dallas Keuchel and some other ones, I think, who may have been physically able, but there may have been something contractual with the team that said, yeah, no, you can't go. In your contract, you can't be doing these other things.
Yeah. And I don't even think it needs to be a game. If they wanted to change it and make it the future stars play, right? So the young guys, the prospects, they're the ones who play the game. And the older guys just have a skills competition of some sort. You can have the home run hitting competition. Yet you don't even have to play an actual game. We know what these guys can do in the field, but like the skills, I think to me are more interesting to people than the actual game. So like in Japan and in Korea, they have all these games that make them do all these drills to show, what the skill of an infielder is and what this is and what that is. And you can have all these things set up, not even have a game. And then after that, you have the prospects game that launches the season. And you're like, these are our future stars. Go watch them on MLB TV, which is now part of MLB TV, and support them at the stadiums. And then boom, you kick off your season, you're good to go.
Yeah, I was really glad to hear that about the MLB TV coming underneath the MLB TV, if you will, to be able to see those games. I know, man, Matt, when I think of what you do, I know as far as your ability to watch games and how you have to snare video from here and there and watch shaky cameras that somebody may have put up in a field for a single A or double A team. I don't know. Maybe this will make it a little easier.
Yeah, I'm hoping they need to invest some money in the cameras at least. You don't even have to have announcers if you don't want, but at least have good video. I think people wouldn't even mind watching that with the sound on and just listen to the sounds of the game. Yeah. But the cameras, like I think I said this to you the last time, a 10-year-old could go around with a GoPro and set them up in better locations than what MLB teams have been doing. So I don't know who's running the show down there, but they need some help big time.
Yeah, you can't get the guy who's doing your janitorial services and selling hot dogs to also be the guy that sends up the cameras. And sometimes I think it's the deal. Okay, yeah.
It's true. I don't know. Maybe because they don't watch the broadcast, they don't see how bad it is. I don't know. But
I don't know. But like I say, once you attach a dollar to it, they'll find a way.
Yeah.
I'll just say one last thing about the World Baseball Classic. We can talk more about it. We were talking about bringing up the young people. And this Mitch Bratt, I'm really excited about watching this game tonight because here's a guy you and I, who is he? Oh, he's 19 years old. It looks like he might be with the Texas Rangers, but I don't know much more than that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does and a lot of the other young people in this classic. And let's see, we're going to be going into the quarterfinals for all this. No, yeah.
Pretty soon.
Quarterfinals, yeah.
There's still a few days left. I mean, in the quarterfinals already, you have Australia and you have Italy. Like just right there, you have two teams that nobody would have picked at the beginning. Australia, I knew could be stronger than most people thought because they do have consistent, strong veteran leadership on that team that is seasoned because of the league they have in winter. So I just don't know if their pitching is going to be there. But imagine like somebody like Curtis Mead, if he had been allowed to go, would have really helped Australia elevate even better. So they're doing well as it is. And then Ji-Man Choi being stopped from going to South Korea really hurt them. But I think, the youth movement is so interesting to watch because, like you said, just they're going to be there for a long time. They're going to enjoy the classic. They're going to show up again next time. So that's intriguing to me.
This looks like a good place for a transition because we're talking about youth and you're bringing up Curtis Mead. And you and I, the last time we talked, you said, Mark, you know what? There's going to be a lot of guys in spring training, many more rookies than you would see previously because a lot of the regular members are going to be going to the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah.
The Yankees, I think we talked about, had as many as 29 people coming up that were not on the regular list. It's anybody who wants to make any kind of conclusions from wins and losses during spring training this year, they're setting themselves up for failure if they think that's going to be reflective of the regular season. But it has made for some interesting games and some interesting players. So going back to talking about Curtis Mead with the Rays, who are some of the other young people you've seen come up in the Rays organization through spring training this year?
The ones that you mean, like the ones that weren't supposed to be like big highlights or notable, or
the ones that we would not necessarily have expected. And have there been any real surprises or wonders going, yes, where did this guy come from?
I've watched him a lot, so I know him pretty well. But Jordan Cassar, I think, is making a really good impact with the limited at-bats he could have. Slavis Basabe is one that I think opened up a lot of eyes. And he's somebody that has the versatility in the infield. He can play second all the way through third, and he did really well defensively and offensively. I think he opened up some eyes and kind of put Vidal Brujan And Taylor Wall's on notice, like, your spots are not secure on this roster. And that's a great thing. Kyle Manzardo, I think, showed off his power, and that was expected. But if I was to dig a little bit deeper, a lot of these things are like smaller margins because they're only seen a couple of times and then you don't see them again. But I think Trevor Bridgen is one that I'm really intrigued by, and Joe LaSorsa is the other one that I mentioned before with Italy. He's doing it with Italy, but I think performances like that are ones that kind of bring you a little bit closer to saying, we have some intriguing pieces that we haven't really seen before. But by far, the most encouraging performance so far in the Rays camp has to be Luke Raley, and seeing him hot early with showing power, making consistent contact. He's got a different approach this year at the plate than what I saw last year when he first came up. He was a lot more relaxed. He's basically using the approach that I wish Isaac Paredes would use, because he's more aggressive at the right times instead of allowing the umps to call strikes. Anyways, I won't dig too deep into that, but he's another one that I would say is really showing. I think if he could actually give them the left-handed power they were looking for, along with Josh Lowe, who's been the biggest star, I think, of all of Rays camp, then they're in business because they've got that left-handed power. And today, Brendan Lau came along. So that's 3 big left-handed bats that they could potentially have to go into the season. So I think that's what they were looking for. On the downside, I think Garrett Clevenger is looking a little rough. Maybe he's a little tired or he's not sorting stuff out. But I always want to point out one weakness, giving it out. But the young guys will be fine. I know they sent 5 guys down to the minors today. So Kobe White, Curtis Mead, Greg Jones, Asabe, and Bradley. Bradley's definitely on the radar. But now they're starting to clear up room for the regular roster. And one thing that's interesting to note is that they have a spot open, or that they can open, once they put Shane Baz on the 60-day IL. It'll be interesting to see who they pick for that.
I know you got a little grief earlier today, man. You were actually commending Randy Arozarena for doing such a great job out there and putting something on Twitter, and somebody said, "Hey, aren't you the guy we should dump him?"
I didn't say we should dump him. The Rays said that the Rays said. So there were rumors that the Rays were shopping him. I never said I wanted to dump him. I said that if they can get what they want for him, then yeah, they can move him. I know the way that the Rays deal players. So for instance, if you trade Randy Arozarena and you put Curtis Mead in left field, are you really that much worse off, assuming Curtis Mead hits the way we think we will? Not really. So he's not indispensable to the Rays. Is he electric? And is he somebody that you want in the playoffs? Most definitely. Is he much better now with the bigger bases than he would have been before? Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of benefits to keeping Randy Arozarena around. I was by no means saying dump him.
Thank you for clarification, because I thought they were coming on a little hard at you this morning when I saw that on Twitter. I said, really?
I don't pay attention.
Smart man.
Oh, good.
Oh, brother. No, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great season. And there's things we knew we weren't going to be seeing people come back. We knew Zunino wasn't going to be there. We knew Kiermaier wasn't going to be there. I really hoped that Peralta would be there because I saw him as a leader. I saw him maybe as a mentor. I was surprised in some ways to see Corey Kluber. I don't remember what his contract was, but I don't think he's been shining as much as I think expectation was there.
Peralta would be blocking Josh Lowe a lot.
Good point.
So I'm glad. I think they tried that last year just to try to go and see if they can make any noise in the playoffs. They knew Glasnow was coming back. Yeah, they said, we'll give it a small shot. But Josh Lowe had a heck of a July, and he was the best hitter in AAA from that point on. So there's no reason to not give him that job and see what he can do between now and July. If he fails, then yeah, you look for a David Peralta style guy maybe to jump in. But I think he's going to be a 25 home run, 30 plus stolen base player this year. And you're going to see him become a fixture at the top of the lineup.
I am looking forward to seeing what kind of a difference there's going to be as far as stolen bases with all the players this year. Recently I had Chris Smith on here. We were talking about Ricky Henderson. He said, can you imagine if Ricky Henderson had these larger bases in the new rules? No, it's a whole other dynamic. But it should be a little bit more excitement. Whether you agree or don't agree with these rules, I do find that there's going to be more excitement with the game with them.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of the rules that they're bringing in and trying them out. And I know they've went back and forth on some of the rules that they've put in. So the fact that they're at least trying, and the pitch clock is one I've been admiring from afar for a long time. The automated strike zone will be the next one I'll be really hyped about. The shifts and all that. Yeah. You know what? Like having people really have to show off their defensive skills. I don't think there's much wrong with that. I just also think that you shouldn't punish the smart teams. But I get it. If you really hammer a ball that 90% of the time of pre-shift would have been a hit, and all of a sudden the guy's right there, it's to be really frustrating. So I get it. We'll see. What do you think the rules are going to turn out? Are you expecting a huge offensive outburst, or?
I am expecting more stolen bases. Offensively, I don't know. I would like to see, I would guess that we're going to see one more run per game. I think that's what's going to happen. If you ask me, I don't think you're going to see much more of an increase in it. I think the time is already proven to be that the reduction amount of time the games are being is there. That's apparent. But the larger bases, not sure they're going to do much for safety, but I definitely do believe they will increase the amount of times the bases are stolen, especially when a pitcher can only step off the base twice far at bat.
One of the most intriguing things I heard, and I was listening to one of the older guys on Sirius XM on Saturday morning, and he was talking about the time on your feet. So the amount of time that baseball players spend on their feet is going to diminish drastically. Now, you might not think that's a huge thing, but come September, that's a huge thing. There's a lot of older players that are going to benefit from this change because they're not going to be on their feet as much. They're going to have more energy to put into those later months in the season. So I think what you're going to see is a more sustained offend of the game. And conversely, for pitchers, you're going to see them have to do way more adjustments than anybody else. So how? That's the one ingredient I can't figure out. Some pitchers are going to benefit because they're not going to overthink things. Some pitchers are going to have a hard time with that because they feel rushed. You're going to have so many different scenarios playing out. I think it'll even out in the end, and it'll just make for more interesting, consistent baseball games, I think. And that's what I think the key is overall. But it is a factor that when you're looking at the amount of time players are going to spend on the field in really hot conditions, if you're in Texas and some other places, like it gets to be pretty warm and toasty. I think it'll be fun to watch. I think the fans will really enjoy it. But the stolen base ones making the bases bigger, I think irks me the most because it renders all previous statistics irrelevant.
Thank you. Thank you.
It puts them in a bowl and then you get to watch them, but you'll never see them again unless they put the bases back to what they were. But you're going to have this outlier now in everybody's career, the asterisks, but played X amount of years with larger bases. So that one, I think, is just not necessary, to be honest.
Yeah, I hate asterisk in the game, and this I do believe it's going to do that because we was talking a moment ago about Ricky Henderson. Whoever achieves something this year, you can't compare it to what he did because of that.
Yeah, it's on its own. It'll be the first of new statistics, right?
Yeah. Oh, brother. I know.
It's all right. We won't cry about it.
Yeah, I know. I'll wait till all the injuries start happening, then I'll cry and say my team's got more than your team. And boo hoo hoo hoo. So we'll see how it comes.
No crying in baseball.
Thank you. I forgot about that. There is no crying in baseball.
That's right.
Brother. So I'm excited about it. I mean, we're only 3 weeks away from opening day. It's fun, boys and girls. And I've almost forgotten about spring training because I've got my head buried in this World Baseball Classic. And this is going to be going on through, I think, about the 19th or more this month. Let's see, I'll bring it up real quick here.
I've been glued on watching pitching and watching who's injured, who isn't injured. Oblique. I think there should be a sponsor called Oblique for baseball.
We need some chiropractors and physical therapists who are sponsoring different parts of the game with all that. I think that would work.
Yeah. There's a lot of fortunes being changed before the season even starts, and the Yankees are feeling it, I think, a lot on the mound, and the Mets are too. So I think the New York teams both overspent on older pitchers, and we're not even started. So what's happening July, August, September? Never mind playoff.
So tell me, do you have a projection for tonight's game with Canada and the U.S.?
It's really hard to tell because Canada's pitching is so weak. I don't know if they can use Matt Brash again, and same with John Axford. I don't think they threw many pitches. Oh, that's a tough call, man.
They did so well with that score being so high the other day. It sounds like the energy is going to be there for Canada.
Yeah, I'll say 9-4 US.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go US, but I'm going to be a little more generous with Canada because I'm thinking more like 12-10.
Okay.
We'll see.
They have the lineup to do some damage. Lance Lynn's not really on his game right now very much. I could see it.
All right. Brother, I'm going to get set up here ready, get my popcorn and everything cooking. Just sit down and enjoy the game. And I hope everybody else gets a chance to enjoy all these fantastic games to watch. My favorite still, I'm going to be looking at Mexico. I wasn't so much looking at them and pulling for them, and definitely Venezuela. Those teams are top for me as ones I really want to see continue to move forward.
Yep, I agree. I think they're very strong as long as they're. I think Venezuela is the most consistent team right now, so they'll be hard to beat.
All right. I want to thank you again, Matt, for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck, as always, and wish you a great time, my friend. It's always fantastic having you here, and always enjoy the conversation.
Absolutely, anytime.
Okay. Thank you all again for joining us here today on Baseball Biz on Deck, and we look forward to talking with you all again real soon. Remember, you can find Baseball Biz on Deck at www.baseballbizondeck.com. Is that enough? You can find me, Mark, at the Baseball Biz Twitter. And Matt, where can they find you on Twitter?
At MAT_GERNAIN_.
There you go. So check us out. We look forward to talking with you guys again. And Matt, stay safe. Best wishes for your team and see what's going.
Same to you, buddy.
All right. Special thanks to XTech RUX for the music rocking forward.